Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Bit of juicy drama going into the World Championship as always. Drazah responding again to the flank situation that happened way back at Major 5, and also responding to Nadeshot's idea that if Drazah was on OpTic, then they would have a very different perception of him as a character in terms of potentially his stream viewership numbers as well. And also Standy revealing a bit of drama with Pred dating back to Major 4. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. First of all, Fantasy is officially open for the CDL World Championship. If you guys want to get involved, there's $2,000 up for grabs here, so it's completely free to enter. But if you pick the best team, you can win a fair chunk of change. The budget, we increased it from $25 up to $27. So this gives you a little bit more to work with. I know we heard some feedback there, and I kind of agree that realistically it's quite difficult to pick a great team for $25. $27 is now the budget. You've got a few days to put your team in. This is the team I formed, which is a highly optimistic pick here, because you are allowed multiple players from a single team, and if you want to win and get the absolute number one of the potential strategies is to choose multiple players from the same team and hope that they win the entire tournament. FaZe, I tried to go for them, but they're just too expensive. Like, I think Cellium is 8, both of the SMGs are 9, and Slasher is 7, so it's tough to make that work. Subliners, though, have the easier side of the bracket. They could well be in the winners finals. They could win. I think it's going to be a really tall order for them to win again, but it could happen. So I've actually gone for 3 of those guys. Hydra, Skies, Priester. There's so many other options, though, and there's so many teams you could form here. Like, a lot of the pricing is kind of middling, so there's lots of options. And then I've gone for Hicksy. Bit of a Lanimal, better on land than online. Feel like for 4, he might be an alright pick as well on the upper side of the bracket. So anyway, that's a this could crash and burn, absolutely, this team. But if it goes well, then maybe it's going to go kind of well. We'll see. I'll give you guys some reminders on that over the coming days as well, because around about a week to submit your team and get involved. Also, I was thinking about getting Simp and aBeZy, but I think they were both $9 picks, and I mean, look at these numbers, right? Actually, if you look at the trajectory here, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, it's first, second. So this year, by the pattern, it's going to be another victory, right? We'll see. I mean, if they get their 3rd ring, it's going to really toss up the all-time kind of a Call of Duty best players of all-time rankings. But Hydra right now, by many, is the number 1 in the MVP ladder. This was the final iteration that Kroner's done of the season, and Hydra did come out on top. I voted in this, and I think gave a pretty similar ranking, actually, to what ended up being the overall one. Hydra, aBeZy, Scrappy, Cellium, Octane, that's the top 5. Pred, to me, just on the outside of it. Dashy just on the outside as well. But, you know, neither of those guys won tournaments this year. All of these guys did, especially Hydra with 2. Thought this is pretty interesting as well from the CDL Iced Out. They say ring counter of the various teams. So you see, obviously, a lot of them over at the FaZe side. They all have a ring already between them. Then you look at Boston. Obviously, that's not the case. OpTic, they've 1 on Shotzzy and Huke, but outside of that, not the case. 0 on the Toronto guys. 1 on Attach on the Minnesota Rokkr. 0 on the Seattle Surge. And then, obviously, the Thieves guys all won last season, right? So they get to 1. But yeah, outside of that, there's not actually that many rings competing at this year's World Championship, apart from on Atlanta FaZe, who I guess still go in as the favourites. Rokkr are there in attendance. They came 3rd at Major 5. Decent run. Bance actually was their top performer by the numbers here, technically. I think once Faye moved to an SMG, he was more impactful, but still, they've got a fair bit to work on. Their search was solid. Their hardpoint was solid. Their control was only 4 in 5, despite being very good on aLLEY for the majority of the season. I think they're going to have a little bit of a hard time against a team like the New York Subliners round 1. Subliners, really good in hardpoint, very good in search and destroy, and it's the control where New York are probably the weakest, but it's not actually been a great mode for Rokkr either, so the balance seems to suggest to me that New York should be the favourites in that series. The other one, though, was Toronto Ultra. Really interesting run, actually, for them, because look at this search numbers. 8 in 4 in search, 8 in 1 in control. Still, possibly the best control team in the game, but 5 in 10 in hardpoints. That is pretty shocking, and you'd expect them to turn this around to a certain degree come champs. I wouldn't expect them to be this bad in hardpoints again, but it was a surprising weakness, despite the fact that their KDs are not actually that terrible. Especially when you look at the damage per 10 for Scrappy and CleanX, and the hill time for Insights, but yeah, wasn't translating into results. So they're definitely a team that can make some damage happen. They've got to beat Thieves, though, round 1, which is going to be far from easy. And speaking of Thieves, there's been a fair bit of drama going on with Drazah over the last couple of days. He was actually spectating a pretty disgusting Dashy 1 versus 3 that went down last night. Questionable plays from the opposition, it's got to be said, but Dashy clutched it up anyway. But yeah, Drazah, we know that he has interesting relations with many of these guys. Drazah versus aBeZy, big rivalry there. He plays a lot of Search and Destroy 8, right, so he gets to play with a lot lot of these guys, but Nature was asking him the question, if he was on OpTic, would he be the second most popular player in the league behind Shotzzy? And Drazah's response is, look, some fans, maybe looking at OpTic fans, their opinion changes on whether they like said player or not. If Drazah was on OpTic, I think the perception of it would be different, as it would be for many players that were on OpTic. But he also wouldn't be able to lean into the villain role to the same extent, because if you're on OpTic, you can't really be the villain. That's just not how it works. But he also gives some further thoughts on the whole flank tweet that they did about the FU Drazah chance of the major. And he's like, I mean, again, he's like, oh, I don't care, guys. I don't care. Like, it's all good. But he's still talking about it, right? So, you know, that's why people are going to say, oh, he's charming, soft and all this. Thought it was pretty funny. Another clip as well between Standy and Pret.
Do you think you'd be the most popular player in the league behind Shotzzy if you were on OpTic?
I think it's funny how people will gas other people talking shit, but flip it towards me. But at the end of the day, like, none of that matters to me.
Yeah, I know. But here's the rub, because we talked about you a lot in the last 2 episodes. I want to know, when people say that you talk shit but can't take it yourself, what are they referring to? Like, what's
unbelievable? That's insane.
What moments have you been like disrespectful back beyond like flipping the bird? But if people are saying Drazah, like, yeah, I'm throwing up the birds.
There's actually nothing. It was literally obviously this last recent thing with the flank and whatnot. But other than that,
what happened with the flank?
Well,
they tweeted out the Drazah chant.
Yeah. Oh, and then you tweeted at the flank, like, or you quote tweeted it.
Yeah. So basically, well, I'm pretty sure iLLeY in Vanguard, so Standy, he had a little few thing. They didn't tweet anything. Beans had a few thing with OpTic when he lost. They didn't really tweet anything, and then they tweet the clip. It's not even that big of a deal. I didn't even care for it too much, but I just like, they're just like, you know, add into the hate. It is what it is. It makes sense, but I was just like, it's a little dick ridey a little bit. And then they tweeted out after, like, a pic of me, like, with comparing to, like, Zuma or whatever. And I just was, I didn't really with it.
Slight dick ridery.
Just a
small dick ridery.
Yeah, some small dick ridey. But, like, I understand the concept of it all. Like, they're all trying to, like, get likes and all this. But, like, I was just like, if this happened to FaZe, I don't know if they're tweeting this.
I mean, I would certainly. I'm dick riding you for sure now by defending you as much as I have, but I think that perspective is actually super helpful. There was somebody who's Beans and Standy. They never tweeted that shit out.
Yeah, I mean,
look, man. At the end of the day, if the flank tweets out a video of the crowd chanting Drazah,
they're inviting him to say something.
99% of the time, any player in the CDL, they're not just gonna roll over and take it.
Yeah.
Bro, why don't you guys play with AG or some why it should be AG, Standy, Octane? What the f is other y'all are doing? Fellows picking up challenger players. Can y'all CDL mother play with each other?
Listen, after major 4,
is there beef? Is there beef?
After major 4, when Rokkr reverse swept Seattle and I tweeted out LMAO, Pret unfollowed me.
No
so
way.
Like, there might be some tension there. So there might be tension there. I'm still down
what's
to play
going
with him,
on. There's internal beef.
Oh, it all comes out. Bro,
There's
what I
internal
told you.
Beef, bro.
Wait, Tom, did I tell you this? I told you they don't.
I don't have no beef with no one.
I knew there was something up. I knew there was something. This is why I can't just message bros.
I'm down to play with him.
Nah, he's not down to play with you, bro. It's chalk, bro.
He might be. He actually might be. Like, I feel like there's still like good vibes there, you know?
Oh,
I think
man,
like, it was just like
bro.
after a match, like I was just like, bro, I want to make champs, and they got reverse swept, and there's a blah 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 blah. Like, you know,
there's internal beef, bro. I can't believe this shit, bro. I can't believe this shit, bro.
He was just like, at the end of the day, I was upset they got reverse swept. He was upset he got reverse swept. He got on Twitter, saw me tweet out LMAO, nice. And then he said, you know what? This kid, I'm jacked. I'll beat the out of him.
Bro, listen.
That's pretty spot on, iLLeY. That's exactly how it probably went down.
Probably what he thought he said.
So in this case, Drazah did get asked the question, right? So I can't really say, oh, you know, Drazah, like, you know, he's super charming, soft, because he's mentioning it again, because he did get asked about it, and he did give his thoughts that doesn't really affect him too much, but he wasn't really super happy with what the flank tweeted out at the time. The other point, though, is, and I think it was an interesting one, about what would be the case. We'll actually have a look at this from Ghosty, for example. Ghosty joined OpTic not long ago, and he's pretty much much a top 10 streamer. Doesn't stream, okay, streams a fair bit. He doesn't have a crazy amount of hours compared to some, but Ghosty does stream a bit, averages about, 1,300 viewers, peak viewers 3,000, something like that over the, I think this is the month of May. So this is the OpTic effect, right, to a certain extent. If Drazah was on OpTic, then I think, and Drazah's got a pretty entertaining personality, I think that he would be at least where Ghosty is, which puts him in the conversation. Whether he's the second most popular player behind Shotzzy, because Shotzzy, of course, is number one, but in fairness, if you look at the streams, like, it's Shotzzy, then it's Dashy, then it's Ghosty, and Drazah also is on this list, right? He's a little bit further down, so would Drazah be above Dashy if that was the case, right? I'm not so sure he would be, right? If Drazah joined OpTic for some reason, let's say he joined OpTic for Ghosty, and that was the team next season, which would be pretty wild, like, where would Drazah fit in? Would his, would his personality come to the light side in some senses? Would he change around his own personal perspectives on what he thinks about OpTic and other teams? I don't know. I doubt that's going to be the case. Would he be, like, the third most popular player on OpTic? Like, possibly that would be the case. I think it's always going to be tough to kind of get beyond Shotzzy, especially right now, and also Dashy as well, given what he's been to the OpTic fan base for years. So I don't think Nadeshot's quite there, but I think he's not too far away, to be honest. The other bit of juice that was going down, though, was between Standy and Pred, which I thought was pretty funny, actually. So this is looking back to Major 4, I believe, right? When Minnesota Rokkr reverse swept the Surge, and at the time, it's kind of funny in a way, because Surge, in the end, were the team that Vegas were battling most closely with for champs, but for a long time, it looked like it was going to be the Minnesota Rokkr that were their chief adversaries. So what they wanted to happen at the time here was for Rokkr to lose this series to ensure they got no more points in this tournament. Surge would knock them out and therefore give Vegas a better chance to get to champs, because Vegas had just got, they got 5-2 comeback right by the Florida Mutineers in the game 5, and they lost the points they could have got, so they needed Rokkr to also lose the points they could have got, but didn't happen because they got reverse swept here, Surge, to get knocked out of the tourney. So as a result of this, Pred then wasn't a happy man, and he apparently unfollowed Standy, because Standy tweeted out at the time, like, LMAO. I think all those tweets got deleted, because that's what Standy likes to do, but yeah, Pred wasn't so happy about it, and now therefore apparently that drama is now continuing, where Pred and Standy don't necessarily get on. He doesn't really want to play with him so much, which is pretty interesting. I don't think this is going to particularly affect either of their careers, in the sense that I don't necessarily think there's going to be doors that are closed as a result of this. Pred's not going to be teaming with Standy in the near future anyway. Standy, you'd think, might stay on Legion next year. Pred's going to go to some of the other teams. Of course, it's funny, right, that Standy actually ended up playing Pred at Major 5 and beating him to knock him out of the tournament. So I'm sure, like, Pred, if he wasn't happy with Standy before, probably is especially not happy with Standy now. But I guess he doesn't have to worry about Standy's presence at the World Championship, because Vegas, unfortunately for us, didn't make it in the end. One final thing here from Brian Satch you guys might find interesting. Who is the greatest player, in your opinion, never to win a World Championship? He comes up with the top 8 in his opinion. This list was headed, I think, by Octane and by Kenny last year, but then they won. So now we have to go down to other players. Zuma is definitely up there. I think there's a couple of underrated players as well. The likes of Enable, that was in, back-to-back Champs Grand Finals, lost both of them. I think it's the same thing for Priester, actually. I think he's been in quite a few now. Slacked as well, a kind of underrated player in his career. These are the other 4 that he mentions. So Dashy has always got to be in the conversation just because of his raw talent and ability. The fact that he's only won 2 tourneys ever, not won the World Championship yet, is still crazy to think about. You've then got Gunless in here, right, which I think is a good shout. Bance as well, bit of a Silver Surfer, unfortunately, at the World Championship. And then Saints. I think it's really nice to see Saints mentioned, because for a long time, Saints was, he's an OG COD player, but he was really good back in the day, like Ghost, Advanced Warfare, even Infinite Warfare on LG. This guy was seriously good and very much underrated in terms of like what he was doing for many years of his career. A lot of pro players rate Saints Nato very highly. This isn't Brian Saint, by the way, the coach of the Minnesota Rokkr. This is Saints Nato, different player, but he's rated very highly by many pro players, and I do think for good reason. And for many years I would have said that he was right up there with one of the best, if not the best player to never win champs. He's obviously been out of the scene for a couple of years at this point. The other player that I would mention, probably European bias, is JoeDeceives. If you're going to put Dashy in the conversation as like incredibly talented player that's never won champs, I think JoeDeceives has to be in the ballpark as well. Won a couple of events in his day. Just a ridiculously exciting SMG player to watch, and was around for so many years and never quite could do it at champs. Octane also gives his thoughts on the CDL era ARs. He puts together his rankings of the M4A1, the Krig, the Auto, and the TAC 56. He puts the Auto number 1, then the M4A1 for Modern Warfare 19. The Krig is last in his opinion, which is pretty interesting, and the TAC gets above that. So that's his ranking as an AR player on the ARs. The SMGs, though, his thoughts are they're all equal. They're all ridiculously overpowered, and thought that was a pretty funny take. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.